Welcome to the WNBF UK podcast.
Hello and welcome back to the WNBF UK podcast with me, Sarah Glanville, as your host. We are back for 2025 and it's been a little while since we've done the last episode of the podcast, but that is because we've had a huge 2024 and the last little bit of the year we were really focused on bringing a lot of great social media content and focusing on supernaturals. And we really wanted to change the format up a little bit of the podcast and bring you a full year of educational content, really telling you all about who are WNBF UK and what we're all about. So we've done a lot of planning in the last parts of 2024 to level up the podcast again this year. So it's my delight to introduce you to our first guest in the podcast this year. It's none other than WNBF UK President Stephanie Noble. How are you, Steph? Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. Here we go, 2025. So excited, and I'm really looking forward to a great conversation to kick us off to what's going to be an incredibly diverse podcast paneling strategy that we've got going on. Some really cool things in the background. Hey, Sarah. So yeah, I'm looking forward to having a chat with you.
Yes. So I think we wanted to kick the podcast off this year with a bit of a retrospective look back at 2024. So I think the best way to start that is by asking you what were some of the standout moments and from last year's shows?
Where to begin? I mean, we are so privileged that in the 4 years of the WNBF UK since its inception, we have, been growing year on year on year on year. And that's not without a huge amount of hard work in the background, listening to our community, building out the shows to make them incredible experiences that people want to get up and join us at the WNBF UK, but also return and challenge and come back again. And I think for me, 24 was really quite special because it marks a whole process of a lot of ups and downs, and like with any business, with any organization, with anything you do, that year 3 mark is kind of a really big deal for you. Moving into year 4 with the momentum behind us, and with the vision that we still have and want to continue having to support natural bodybuilding, to give the natural community something pretty special, and to ensure that we continue to push that, or really hone in on that journey from UK right the way through to challenging at the top of the league, the WNBF Worlds, and giving people that opportunity has been massive. So for me, 2024 and the highlights was the real growth, and we had an absolutely breathtaking first timers novice show in June last year. We moved to an 800-seater venue, which was a huge jump financially, but also, people being there. It's a big jump from a Crescent Theatre, which is, just shy of 400, doubling that and moving to just outside London, being, a pretty big move for us, and packing that out, selling the entire place out with shy of just 204, I think it was, by the time we got registration through, athletes at the first timers novice event. It blows my mind, the amount of talent coming through, and I think the fresh blood in the industry, the fact that we are reaching more people, we're touching more people, we're educating more people on what natural bodybuilding is, and seeing more people choose natural bodybuilding as a starting place for their journey, and hopefully to continue that journey. I'm getting like little goosebumps myself, like that. I'm so passionate about that because it is all about health and well-being, and it's all about making sure that they get an experience that matches some of these big events on the open side of the sport, that they can go, I want to do that. That's where I want to start and begin. And so the first timers and novice event really kind of excelled in many ways from the move of the venue, and also the numbers that came through. Fast forward then to October with the Supernaturals, and we did not anticipate, I certainly didn't anticipate the numbers that we were going to have at that event. We actually ended up having to cap that event's numbers in the 2 weeks prior. 264 athletes signed up for that event. It ended up being around, I think by the time registration again was through, we had what is usually about a 10%, sometimes a little bit more drop off, which we've got used to in terms of the planning for the shows. And we had around 230 athletes by the time that was done. So that posed incredible opportunity, and it also posed some challenges, which I'm sure we'll get onto. We had the key elements of that event set out that I wanted to bring electricity to the event. I wanted to bring live music. We had our live DJ Gilbert. I wanted to bring just a mega atmosphere, not just for the competitors, but for the spectators who, without them, we don't have, incredibly full venues. And to sort of support all 360, angles of this, the athlete experience, the audience members, and make a serious show. And I think we absolutely smashed it. And I'm sure we'll discuss that in more length, but those were, of course, a couple of the highlights. And I think just as a year on a whole, in a very fast moving and fast paced environment, which we'll talk about as well, was, yeah, big moments of achievement for me and everybody involved. Yeah.
Huge achievements. And then we took a team to Worlds, and I know from my personal experience, like that Worlds was outstanding. Just the whole, like the caliber of competition in Boston last year was something else. So I don't know if you want to give your feedback on that from your perspective too, Steff.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think this was, again, just in terms of growth, when we're looking at the different areas, I was looking at my sheets that I had from 2020's team, 21's team, 22's team, pulling kind of the data through and looking at the caliber of athletes and the standard of athletes in UK. We're very blessed in the UK to have a very good foothold in natural bodybuilding. We have incredible talent and we're recognized across the world for that. So, they were expecting us to be bringing a good team, and we had 33 incredible athletes, a good team of amateurs, and I think it was about 8 pros by the time we ended up out there, securing then 3 new pro champions at the Worlds and multiple top 2s and top 3s across the board, and quite a few first places as well in the amateur ranks that then took them into the second day. Boston was an awesome place to have the Worlds. And I think from a point of view of kind of the journey that we talk so highly about, I've been through it, you've been through it, pretty much, the majority of athletes that might be listening to this either are aspiring to go through that journey or have done it themselves. It is the pinnacle of our sport. The WNBF has been the longest standing natural bodybuilding federation in time. And it has the most respect when it comes to stringent drug testing. It has the most respect when it comes to fair level playing field sport. And it has the most respect to the caliber of athletes. We're all very focused now on production and great shows, but one thing WNBF Worlds never misses is the classic high level standard of natural bodybuilders being judged fairly on a stage, with the most stringent drug testing that they've been through at multiple national events from their home countries, right the way through to then having those tests again at world level. And I don't know any other natural federation providing the athlete that journey in the correct way, with the amount of due diligence that there has been to the most important part of our sport, which is the testing. So again, it's really showing people, especially showing natural athletes, both young and more advanced, or I should say novice and more advanced, what that looks like. So many of them don't even know that pathway exists. And then they suddenly get there and go, my God, like, what is this? It's like, the Olympics of natural bodybuilding. And I know other shows call themselves Olympias, etc. There ain't nothing like the WNBF Worlds. And it takes you going to these events to really see that. And I think that that's the thing. Marketing is fantastic, but walking the walk, being there, seeing it, seeing what can be achieved naturally is worth everything. when it comes to being a more experienced natural bodybuilder. So you start to think, right, where do I really want to be? And that's why WNBF has the prestige it does, because people see this is the level I want to compete at. And so for the novice athletes, they really, really have enjoyed this journey and thought, my God, I want to come back. And for our pro athletes, it's the hunger to keep climbing the ranks, to get to that world champion spot, to get to these top level spots. So yeah, Worlds was phenomenal, and the network, the international circuit is so tight, and we're growing incredibly stronger together, and we're continuing to then offer more to our community.
For sure. I know I'm not the only one with their fire lit after what was an epic 2024. So we mentioned in your highlights there that, of course, all of this good growth does come with a few challenges. So what were some of the biggest challenges that you faced last year?
So, I think one of the biggest things, and I've always been very open about the struggles that WNBF UK face, from so that we can be as transparent as possible with our community, and so that we can also give insight to the internal thinking processes of what are going on. Because a lot of people can talk about, oh, WNBF are doing this, or WNBF UK are doing that, or this was not so good here because of XYZ. But in reality, nobody really understands or knows, unless you're in the workings in the day-to-day of seeing what's going on in the background to make this work. And I've listened to a lot of podcasts. I keep my ear to the ground on everything. I listen to literally everything that there is, to hear how the community speak about our federation, to make sure that we are covering all bases when it comes to delivering as close to the best, events that we can do. And it's like anything, you can't please absolutely everyone, and you are going to get things wrong sometimes, or you are going to find that that something, from growth, we have growing pains. One of those, of course, was the Supernaturals. Supernaturals was the longest event, and I'm quite happy to own that. I'll wear that badge with honor, to be honest, because it signifies, yeah. It was the hardest show I've ever done. It was possibly one of the hardest things I've ever done, for a lot of reasons. Managing my staff, managing the athletes, managing the venue, managing myself as well. There's a lot of things that go into, what would I say, foreseeing a potential issue through a day. And for everyone listening, there's no dress rehearsal of this stuff. You don't go in, you don't get to practice your show and run your show. You go in at 6 o'clock in the morning, and you pray that nothing goes wrong in that day. And most of the time you have it all locked off, boxed off. We've done this 4 years now. We've got a very clear working machine, and it has been incredibly successful. The Supernaturals posed a problem because of the volume of people and the lack of space in a venue. So we tried our very hardest to try and shift a venue at last minute. We couldn't do that. We had to make the most of what we could at the last dance, I call it, at the Crescent Theatre. Now, the Crescent Theatre has been our resident Supernaturals venue for years. It just so happened that this time around, with the volume and with the space, it was just going to be very difficult for us to get through. And we thought we could try and do it, but because of there's many reasons as to why things might not run on time, we just found that it was a difficult process to get through in the time that we wanted to. One thing I will never ever sacrifice on stage is stage time. I had the option halfway through the day to cut people's walks, stop people's routines. I had the option of cutting out the way we do prizes, which take time. People don't. It's not just the bodies on stage, it's people running on and off with prizes, it's lighting changes, it's shifting in and out breaks for judges, it's getting people to come back into auditoriums. There's so much that's involved with it. But, there was a lot of things I could have done, and I just couldn't do that. I couldn't have 3/4 of the day of athletes who had their moment, had their stage time, and then say to the last few, because we were running late, no, do you know what, you're not allowed to do your routine. it was going to run to when it was going to run, and I had made my peace with the fact that we would have to then discuss why that happened post the event. Is it an ideal scenario? Absolutely not. Is it something we learn from and we've obviously announced a huge announcement which we'll talk about this year. We will. But I think one thing I always do year on year is listen, get the feedback from my internal staff, get the feedback from the community, and also think, how would I have felt? What would I have wanted to do? And then bring all of that together and make the necessary changes. So that was a challenge. I'd say the second challenge for me this year was actually athletes that were not aware of the international rules. So I had several WNBF UK athletes not follow the rules of the international circuit that we have for the UK athletes. And this has been something that I've had to speak with individual athletes on, and we've come to reasonable solutions to obviously then make sure that these things don't happen again, but also to ensure that the support is around the athlete if a mistake has happened. I'm not going to be somebody, I don't want to be that president that, you know, ostracizes someone for breaking a rule. I find out what has happened, and then I make the reasonable decision on what needs to happen going forward. But for all listening, the UK has a rule that an athlete must, at first, jump on a UK stage before they can go and compete in an international contest. The athlete also must take a top 5 placing within a time frame, which you can go and look on the website of, to allow them to then compete at international events for that duration of time. We want the best UK athletes representing across the circuit and at the WNBF events. So something I'm going to be doing a lot more educating on. It's not a lot of the athletes' fault, but it is something athletes need to do their research on. When you're coming into the federation, you need to understand what these rules mean, and you need to pay attention to them so that you don't get yourself in situations where you might turn up at a show and find that actually, you know, there might be a sticking point with one president or another, because we all communicate. So that's another challenge I faced with a few athletes. However, the majority of that has been all good, and we've been managing now to put in place more clear rules and guidance on the website and through the memberships that we send out, and we'll be doing a lot more on social media on that as well. So those are my challenges.
No, I think just this is, I guess, also we're going to talk a bit more about the podcast and how we're going to be using that this year, but there's learnings not only from the athlete side, as you've said, but learnings that we can take as a federation from the challenges that we've faced, and one being the communication around the international rules, which I know is going to be something that is a big priority for us to communicate clearly this year. And the only other thing I wanted to, I guess, go back to was just to confirm, I guess, what you've touched on with the run over on Supernaturals, and I guess talk from my perspective on that day and being in the middle of it. And I think that, you know, we all woke up on the Monday and there was a lot of feedback around the overrun and people talking about athlete experience from the other side. And that's something that you and I both respect and understand, how a long overrun of a show can affect athletes in the moment. But what I would just like to underline in what you said there around your decision making on the day, there were a lot of voices at you on that day, Steff, to make different decisions and to do things differently. I know, because I was in the middle of that as well. We're trying to react in the middle of that running live show to make the best decision possible. But athlete experience was something that you respected and held as your kind of core value through every decision you made that day, in particular to giving athletes the time that they deserve on stage. Everyone who turned up that day and ended up having a longer day waited backstage waiting for their turn to go on, and everyone got their opportunity to come on and do either their individual routine or their eye walk, which you could have changed your mind on that and we all could have got home a little bit earlier, but everyone got their opportunity to be seen on stage by the people who had come to see them, and, you know, have their moment to shine after a very long prep, and then have that moment afterwards to, you know, soak up that experience of placing or having that kind of finals experience, you know, as the presentation awards are being handed out. So I think that there is a lot to be said for just making sure that there's an understanding around the decision making in the moment. And that, I think, was the best decision that you could have made. And I don't think it was the easy decision to make, but it was the right one to make. And I hope that the people who were on at the end of the day, although they had a long day, I'm sure that there was a lot of people who were grateful for the opportunity to still have their moment to shine. So I just wanted to underline that. I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to say on that.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that as well, because it is in live time, and you hit a very valid point there. I think the majority of people I've spoken to in the natural community understand, and I had a conversation with a few of the pros and a couple of people who turned pro that day, not so long ago, um, about their experience at WNBF UK. They were the guys last on stage. Yeah, I'm not proud to have said, it's going to be that late, but they were on. They stayed, they focused, they showed up, they competed, and they both. Well, it was three of them I've spoken to so far, because I like to, discuss things with the athletes individually themselves as well, because it's important to hear from them. They said that they wouldn't have changed it because the whole day was electric. It was the WNBF Supernaturals. It's the Supernaturals. It's a flagship show. And I want people to want to come to that event because it is the natural event of the year. It takes you somewhere that every natural wants to go, and you respect the process. Natural bodybuilding, we have a community that's kind of unknown. There's a lot of open shows now coming in and starting the events, which I'm sure we'll touch on. But up until this point, this natural community and the culture that are in the natural community and the ups and downs of it and the ins and outs of it, which we all know, it's been a very tight-knit community, and we do understand the process with the natural world. Now that it's growing, more people are coming into that, which is great. But a lot of people outside do not understand that. We don't run like a PCA. We don't run like a Two Bros. We don't run like an ABBA or any of these open shows. We take the time for every single natural athlete on stage. We don't rush. We focus on the art of bodybuilding, the routines, the aesthetic, the blend of the performance and the art with the physicality of it. And we give you your time. And I will never sacrifice that. I just won't. And I think, in the day, it was a lot of challenge. It was a lot of pressure. And I'm just going to shout out Gilbert now. Thank God for Gilbert that day, because we had him off the chain, having the best time. I was doing what I could on the mic as well to buoy up, to be grateful for the people that stayed, for the people that understood what we were going through on that day. For people who are very short to kind of jump in or, send a message here or there that's, this is, excuse my French, but this was shit. Couldn't get, on stage at a reasonable time, corridors too small, da, 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 da. I'm grateful for your feedback, genuinely. But I won't let that seep into the vision. I will take it as a understandable. Not everyone's going to think like me. Not everyone's going to understand the day. Not everyone's going to understand the community aspect. Not everyone's going to understand why it ran late. There is going to be negativity. Is it a difficult thing to deal with? Yes, but is it something that every organization, business, or any person who wants to better should listen to and take on board and better and grow and continue to serve without taking that as a person to event or whatever you've done? Absolutely. So, I feel like we've done our best to talk to as many people that perhaps had a grievance on that day. Interestingly, a lot of the grievances we got were people outside the natural community. And interestingly, quite a lot of the grievances we had were people not actually in the venue as well. So, it's just, we're in a very volatile industry, which is full of lots of great stuff, but it's also full of visceral, in the moment, let's see what we think. And it's a tough industry, but we've got to continue to try and do the best we can and do the best we can for our athletes and listen. So I hope this kind of gives a bit of real sort of content in terms of what it was like on the day and why it all happened that way.
Everyone's got a different perspective, and
Exactly.
sitting at home watching the live stream, you also perhaps do miss a little bit of that electric atmosphere. And I second that. the feedback that we've had from athletes who were taking part in the show was overwhelmingly positive. There were people who gave us good feedback, and there was people who gave us constructive feedback, although their experience was overwhelmingly positive. And that leads really nicely on to the next question that I had for you, which was around the impact of feedback on your decision making. So, over the past 4 years, how has athlete and audience feedback influenced the direction of the WNBF UK? And specifically, what insights have really influenced what's going to happen in 2025?
Well, I'd say it has probably been one of if not one of the major influences of the progression and the growth of the organization. This is for the athlete. I am an athlete. It's born out of my passion and love for natural bodybuilding. I'm also incredibly ferocious in my want to see the natural bodybuilding community get the recognition it deserves and to have shows that it deserves, to have great production, big beastie shows where natural athletes can get up there and feel like, let's do this. Let's have, let's show what we can do. So every single year, there's a breakdown in feedback in 3 ways: from the athlete. So I communicate with as many as possible, from my internal staff, from my team, the people who were directly involved in the event, front of house, backstage, merchandise, everything, every area you can think of. I want to know what went well, what didn't go well. Most importantly, what didn't go well. What can we do better the next year? And then the third part of that puzzle is the spectators. How was it to watch? We've all been to bodybuilding shows. They can be quite monotonous, like they can be quite, long and everything else, but how can we engage the audience in more ways, whether it's spectating strategy, how we get people in and out of the venue? Is it half a day ticket? Is it sections tickets? Is it full day tickets? What's the best option for the venue? Everywhere's different as well. It's not just a one size fits all for one venue. That's another thing as well. So listening to the feedback from all the people involved, including our sponsors, including people watching on the live stream, including, our international peers who are looking at the events and how they compare also to the other circuit, is absolutely crucial to make sure that then the events move forward in the right direction. And of course, being the biggest one, Supernaturals will be a 2-day show. It's a huge milestone.
Yeah.
One that it's not one that should be taken for granted. This is a huge investment. What we do at WNBF UK is take all the resource from the year before and put it into the year ahead. We want to scale up the events. One, just to give a rough cost, a day venue of something like an 800 to 1,000 seater. Yeah, you're looking at 10 grand a day.
Minimum.
Yeah. We're looking
Yeah.
at huge costs, reinvested in the federation to make these events run more smoothly, to make the experience more enjoyable, to listen to the peers, listen to the problems that potentially, occurred, to make them better. And it's a big jump. It's a huge jump. Not only have we moved first timers and novice to a bigger venue, higher cost, but more space, more enjoyment for the athlete. We're also doing that with the Supernaturals, doubling it. So this next year is going to be a really, really exciting one. But, it's like everything. I always try and keep my feet on the ground. We should always remain humble. I am very grateful to the community. I'm very grateful to people seeing what we're doing. I'm very, very passionate about, the mission and keeping the values at the heart of everything we do and not, losing the high standard we have when things get bigger. I'm very, very passionate about maintaining a level of integrity. It would be very easy, like I said before, to cut things out. I don't want to do that. I want to try and just see ways in which we can better these events whilst maintaining what the WNBF UK is all about. And seeing how that then develops. Next year's going to be an interesting year. There's a lot of natural events. There's a big natural landscape next year in the UK. Everything every year, something else changes, something else evolves. You have to just keep your feet on the ground and keep pushing forwards with the best well, with doing things in the right way and trying to provide that supernaturals event that I think we can absolutely smash this year. Can't believe I'm saying it's this year, January, but we're going to do it.
I know.
It'll be great.
Yeah. I mean, I think listening to the feedback, obviously the overwhelming feedback that we had last year was around the overrun, which we're not getting away from and we're facing into. And the feedback was, can we do a 2-day event? And I think it's safe to say that we bent over backwards to try and make that happen, Steph.
An
But
understatement.
it's amazing that that's going to be this year. Like I think we've been talking for the last few years now about, you know, how we continue to grow and level up. And I think that there's been anyone who's followed along with the WNBF UK journey, who's been at the shows over the years, has hopefully felt that every show there has been an increment of level up. I am so excited for 2025, like not just for the 2-day event, which will be epic, but there's a lot of other things going on in the background that we won't give too much away for our guests just yet. But yeah, there's so much exciting stuff happening for 2025. So remind us all then, what are the dates? What dates do we need to have in our diary for 2025 this year?
Right. So obviously we've got the first timers novice championships, which is going to be eligible for first timers, which is someone who's never been on stage before in any federation, and then novice competitors as well. So you're a novice if 2025 is your first year, but you may have already competed just before our show. You might have placed before our show in any federation before our show, and that will be on the 7th of June. So you are a novice if 25 is your year, is your first year competing. You're also a novice, however, if you have competed before 2025, but you never placed. Yeah, top 5. Top 3. Yeah. So you can be a novice competitor in either of those circumstances. So we had a great show last year. So that's us going to be jumping into, of course, June this year. We did move it. There's people have been asking me that. We initially had it on the 13th of July. We had to move it because of a venue issue. So we moved it quite a few weeks ago now. It's probably about 2 months ago, I would imagine, to the 7th of June. 7th of June, Grove Theatre, 800-seater, going to be a great day. And really, really privileged to have also got the accolade of the best show of the year for first timers novice. So I would like to see as many people jump up on that stage, whether you've competed just before or whether you're coming back or whether it's your first time.
Yes, by Beyond the Stage awarded us that, didn't they? So that was nice, very exciting. And yes, Supernatural's dates.
Supernaturals is, I can't believe I'm even saying this, double weekender, the big weekender for Naturals, 13th of September, going to be a beast. And there'll be a lot of shifts. There'll be a lot of changes. So we're working very hard on giving you, every year I want to have athletes look forward to something change. Something is different at the events. So there'll be a few really cool things in the pipeline for that event. There's also a lot going on internationally. So the European circuit is pulling ranks, and we have an incredible European circuit with a lot of the European shows in the back end of the year, September, October time. And there'll be some pretty cool news over the globe this year as well, which I'll let just kind of simmer. But we've got some big news coming, and we've got some great, just really great kind of excitement to look forward to towards both shows.
Yeah. And LA for Worlds this year again?
LA, I believe so, yes. So LA will be the WNBF Worlds. And it always sort of does fall the second to last or last weekend of November. So I know that they're just pulling together on the dates for that at the moment. So yeah, really looking forward to, obviously, anyone who qualifies at the Supernaturals event will be given an invite to the World Championships. So we will be taking an amateur and pro team over. The Supernaturals and potentially the First Timers Novice are pro awarding events. The Supernaturals is a pro awarding event. This year was the very first year at the First Timers Novice. Sorry, last year was the very first time at the First Timers Novice that I offered pro cards. Such was the standard. It was relevant and it was the right thing to do. We will be offering more pro cards at the Supernaturals this year. I got a question the other day, or actually I think it was this morning. Can a junior win a pro card? It happened in 2021 with Samuel Hartman when he took the pro card for the junior bodybuilding. And it's happened actually a couple of times in the men's physique as well. So with young guys, although it wasn't under the junior category, it was
Brian Reeston, I think
yeah,
he took that, yeah.
in the age bracket for juniors too. So can it happen? Yes, it can. We award pro cards to those of exemplary standard. Bring your absolute A game, and it can be a potential for anyone at both events. But the Supernatural certainly is the flagship event for the pro card status. And we will be offering out what we normally do, which is usually around 4 to 6 pro cards in the overalls, and depending on the standard, again, just what happens on the day. And then we have got the also First Timers Novice event. If you place top 2 or top 3, you will be given a buy, so a VIP entry into the Supernaturals. So this is a free entry to Supernaturals also. So for those who are winning the First Timers Novice event, you also get the option, if you wish to take it up, to come to the Supernaturals with no entry fee. So that's cool there too. Lots of cool surprises, sponsors coming in this year as well. And yeah, some nice new changes for supers coming up.
So much to look forward to. Okay, and then that leads us on to our last little topic of conversation for today's podcast then. So something else that's changing, leveling up this year is the podcast. So we've kicked off the podcast today with a bit of a look back at last year, but what can our listeners expect from the podcast moving forward? And I guess, how is it going to be doing its job to serve the natural bodybuilding community in the UK?
Well, I mean, I think the theme for this year is go big. So we're emulating that right across the podcast also. So, Sarah, you've been absolutely smashing it with, interviewing so many cool people that have been involved in WNBF UK, from a competitor level, first timer level, all the way through to pro athletes and anyone else who's been involved. And for anyone listening, I really do urge you to go back and watch and listen to some of the podcasts, because they'll really help you understand some of the culture and the community aspect and what to expect at our events. So go and check those out. But this year, I mean, we have got some really big names in the industry, some great influencers, some really cool panel-based podcasts that we're going to be discussing lots of different topics, as Sarah mentioned at the very beginning. We're going to take a lot of educational stance, but we're also going to be looking at hot topics throughout the year and things that people want to have a good old chat about too. So, and I'm really excited to be obviously hosting that alongside you and bringing some other people into the mix for that too.
Yes, I'm excited to have you helping with the hosting, Steff. I think it's going to be a really exciting year. I think that, just from my perspective, we've done an amazing job of raising the profile of athletes in the community over the last few years with the format of the podcast. And coming into the turn of the year, I thought that there was more that we could do with this as a platform to also, I guess, give a little bit of a behind the scenes with what it takes to run the WNBF UK, what the decision making looks like, and also what we can use it as an educational platform for, I guess, some of the stuff that maybe has gone under the radar a little bit, like international competitive rules that we've talked about before. And as we've mentioned throughout this whole podcast, there's a lot of change and a lot of things going on in the industry, and a lot of people with a lot of opinions on things that are happening in the industry. And I think it's good that, we can showcase who we are, what we're all about, what the ethos and the motivation is for running WNBF UK. And I think the podcast is a perfect place for longer form conversations on that, on top of the cool stuff that everyone sees on the socials. There's a lot of thought that goes into the back of that, and I think this is the perfect place for us to showcase that. So hopefully people will get a lot from the podcast this year. I'm very excited.
Yeah, I am too. And I think, I think everyone having these conversations and more conversations in such a media-based world now is really vital for the collaboration across the industry as well. I think the more that we are communicating, synergizing, I'm really excited about this year. There's going to be lots of changes. There's a lot of, development in the natural world in terms of bodybuilding, which could be a whole other podcast in itself. But people sharing their opinions, people kind of, supporting what is the main thing we're all passionate about, natural bodybuilding, health, longevity, getting up on stage, showcasing hard work without the use of potentially harmful drugs is a very great thing. And that is the main thing, with all of the kind of bells and whistles, that is the main agenda in the middle of it. And I think the more of us pulling together and making sure that that stays integral and making sure that that is something that we all hold at the center of all we do is a great thing. I can't see anything negative about that. And it also, with the development of the year and people having these conversations, allows more people to learn about natural bodybuilding. I'm amazed there's still hundreds of people we have not spoken to or don't even know the natural bodybuilding exists yet. So it's a really cool time to kind of continue to push forward with the messaging and the vision that we have and continue to provide stages for all these people to jump up on.
Very excited. Okay, so we're thinking 2 episodes a month. That's what we're shooting for. 2 episodes a month. Educational content, hot takes. So me and you're going to be chatting a lot, which will be nice.
That'll be
Nicer
good.
than normal because we hardly
Yep.
speak to each other, even though we love each other. So yeah, it'll be nice to speak to you more, Steph. But yeah, we'll do 2 episodes a month and yeah, dropping lots of good content, hopefully. So is there anything else that you want to mention before we log off the podcast today?
No, just if you're going to jump on our stage, sign up. If you know someone who wants to jump up on the stage, get them following the Instagram page, get them hitting the website. We've got an incredible group community on Facebook as well, the Facebook group, the WNBF UK Facebook group. We've got, of course, all of the information on the FAQs on the website. So if you're going, what I'm a first timer and I'm not sure about this, please go to the FAQ section of the website, frequently asked questions. Everything anyone has ever asked me, I have answered and put in that list. It grows exponentially by the minute. If you're someone who wants to be part of the WNBF and compete internationally with us in all of the other federations, the WNBF federations, awesome. Jump on the website. There's a new page specifically for international rules. If you're an international athlete and you want to come and do WNBF UK show, we would love to have you. If your country has an affiliate, then you can get their membership and come and compete with us. If they don't have an affiliate, contact us. We're still willing to see what we can do to get you over and have you at our events. The Supernaturals we had about 10 to 15% of the athletes were international athletes, which was awesome. So we want more of you guys from Germany, Italy, Spain, France, Netherlands, Switzerland. We had Dubai, Pakistan. We had literally athletes.
Real?
Yeah. Literally from Taiwan as well on the stage at Supernaturals. We welcome you. Come and have an incredible experience with us. And then lastly, is just to say that we are a federation that listen to you. If you have a question, drop us a DM. If you have anything you want to ask us, email us in at info@wnbfuk.com. We'll always be there to answer. And we look forward to obviously just continuing to serve, and we always want to keep leveling up. So that's what we'll do. 25 is no exception. Let's keep going.
Let's keep going. Well, thank you all for listening along to the first episode in the 2025 series. And yeah, we'll be back in a few weeks with the second episode. So signing off. Thanks a lot, guys.
Check out CNP, our sponsors, and sign up for our events at WNBFUK.com.